We're also discussing the topic in the aftermath of the Brown Review and the government's adoption of its key recommendations. And Brown and government are just equivalent terms, so to all intents and purposes the government has adopted Brown, and the future, I think, is going to be a further adoption of those aspects of Brown which have not currently been adopted. But the discussion of increased tuition fees has crowded out other issues, and many within the humanities and social sciences see themselves caught in a pincer movement whereby the argument for higher fees is designed to generate a market driven by student choices, and this in turn will shift students towards more vocationally relevant courses. In truth, I think it's more likely to be university senior managers who direct their universities in this direction than the market. But the view is that that will diminish support for arts, humanities and social sciences, and thus for critical thinking. So that's around it. What I want to do first is sort of say something about the characterization of the modern university that might be involved in this and how one might locate the public university within that characterization. And I'm going to use the work of Clark Kerr, who I think is particularly significant. He wrote a book in 1961 on the uses of the university. It's been republished 5 times, and the last issue was in 2001, shortly before he died. And that sets out a trajectory of problems of the university in a text which is read by all senior managers and vice-chancellors. And he was one of the first to characterise the modern university as a multiversity because it had multiple functions and constituencies. And not all its functions are publicly funded, and not all serve a public purpose. So the public university is, in a sense, an idea within the multiversity rather than a description of the totality of what a university could be if one takes Clark Kerr seriously. The idea that the university might serve economic growth and the development of human capital, which has come up in the previous section, is not new, and it goes back a long way, in the UK at least, to the civic universities of the late 19th and early 20th century. And it's not something, I think, that can be fundamentally changed, not least because the pressure towards its development is from within the university as well as externally upon the university. So if we attacked it, we'd be attacking our colleagues. The issue then is the extent to which the multiversity's public functions are being attenuated, not that the university should only serve public purposes, is what I want to put forward. The multiversity for Kerr is primarily a research university, and for Kerr, that university embeds a conflict between teaching and research. The irony is that in the UK policy, it's designed to enhance research universities, creating a new binary or even ternary divide by using increased tuition fees, thus accentuating the contradiction at its heart. And it's interesting, I think, that Brown seeks to resolve that contradiction. He doesn't particularly speak about it, but I think it's latent within the Brown Review. The contradiction between teaching and research in the enhancement of the research university is going to be resolved by offering education as a positional rather than a public good. And that's how the report developed. But the process that culminated in Brown began with a strong articulation of the public university in the Robbins Report of 1963. It was part of a process of democratisation in which higher education was brought under the wider process of social citizenship that had established education as a right and also extended it to higher education. The principle that Robbins set out was that courses of higher education should be available for all those who are qualified by ability and attainment to pursue them and who wish to do so. And the Robbins Report also did something that Brown didn't do. It articulated the idea that a university education was not simply about the transmission of skills, but also about a broader development of the individual, which required interaction among teachers who also pursued research or scholarship, and among students who were in residence and part of a community of individuals pursuing courses of study together. I think that complex of things is really significant, and that's what the expansion of higher education in the UK was based upon. But it was also associated with another specific expectation, that of a secular decline in the range of inequalities. Notwithstanding Robbins' own reputation, he is, if you like, the first neoliberal economist. He's committed to the market mechanism where appropriate, but for him it wasn't appropriate in education. And the understanding of a progressive decline in inequality was central to his own perception of the wider environment in which higher education was developing. And that's also central to Clark Kerr's idea of the multiversity. Since the 1980s, however, the secular decline in inequality has been sharply reversed, as Karen was talking about, associated with neoliberal policies applied throughout the economy and society, such that inequalities are now more sharply polarised at any time since the turn of the century. The contribution that universities might make to economic growth is now associated with an economy that is allowed to be an engine of inequality. And that, I think, is quite different from how the present expansion of universities was first set up. Thus, the university now functions for this kind of market, and on recent reforms is to be governed by the market or its audit proxies. The social mission of the public university, or the social mission of that part of the university, of the multiversity, has become attenuated and reduced to an emphasis upon individual mobility that widening inequalities make harder to achieve. And by 2001, Kerr was identifying pathologies of the multiversity. So in setting out what was, if you like, the canonical statement for vice-chancellors, he was warning vice-chancellors about the dangers of the development of the multiversity. Universities, Kerr thought, would confront resistance on the part of politicians. Public attitudes are different from those of the attitudes of politicians, to spending on activities other than those that could be justified in terms of their contribution to the areas of health and medicine, to the expansion of economic growth, or the development of the military-industrial complex. And again, that's specifically Kerr's representation. There would, he said, be a decline in the humanities and most social sciences, except that they functioned in support of these other priorities, and there would be a decline in concern with equalities and the social mission of the university. That was not the inevitable future of the multiversity. That was the pathology of the multiversity as it developed. In other words, the multiversity, based upon multiple functions, is reducing functions associated with its public good. So despite the fact that nearly all university vice-chancellors and senior administrators and civil servants involved in higher education have read Kerr's account of the multiversity, it's really difficult to resist the conclusion that current policies for higher education are designed to do anything other than reinforce the very pathologies that Kerr describes. And there's not a single vice-chancellor who perceives his or her university to be a beneficiary of the changes that has made a single argument in relation to any of these pathological conditions that were set out. Not one has argued for a social mission, not one has argued for humanities and social sciences funding, and so on.